OPPO is bringing their flip phones to other parts of the world. Finally, the modern flip phone market is going to have some more competition. I'm pretty bored by just looking at the Galaxy Z Flip series only, actually. Now, the OPPO Find N2 Flip is an interesting phone. It takes the modern flip phone design, enhances it, and then add a few more specialties on their own. So, does OPPO have what it takes to dethrone the Galaxy Z Flip 4? Let's find out. We'll start off with the unboxing of the phone because the phone's box is kinda humongous, and one of the things I do like is that OPPO also included a case inside the box. I'm really not a fan of this case here because it's just a piece of hard shell plastic that gets hairline scratches very easily and also slides around the table. Because hard shell plastic without any textures, it's actually not that high in terms of friction, but hey, at least they included something in the box, which is better than nothing. Now let's talk about the phone itself. I really do like the design, and the textures are slightly rough, which adds grip to the phone while holding it like this, and it also feels very nice to the touch. Even the hinge cover has a wave texture design to it. I don't know how to describe it, so I'll just show you some B-roll shots here. And the overall craftsmanship of this phone is certainly exquisite. As you can see though, the top of the OPPO Find N2 Flip has two cameras, and beside it is a very humongous cover display which takes half of the total available space. Let's talk about the cover display then. It is a 3.26-inch AMOLED screen with 382 by 720 pixels in resolution, and it has a rather weird aspect ratio, but it does feel like a tiny phone screen on the cover display. What we can do with the cover display though is quite a lot, but I do think that they can improve it further via a software update. We can double tap the display and then use Face Unlock to immediately start using the cover display, or just use the fingerprint scanner at the side of the phone. Then we can swipe down to access the list of quick settings, or swipe up to access the notifications instead. From the notifications menu, we can tap and reply by selecting a bunch of preset messages only. We can't type our own messages, but we can add our own custom presets instead. By swiping to the sides though, we have a list of widgets as well, and it doesn't really offer that much utility, honestly. The weather and events widget could have been just integrated into the cover display's home screen instead of having individual widgets, and the camera widget, while it does offer quick access to things like video mode or portrait modes, I prefer just to use the double tap on the volume keys to access the camera directly. One intriguing shortcut that they have included is the earbuds control. If you own any OPPO or OnePlus earbuds, then you can use this widget to immediately gain quick access to control the ANC or transparency modes, and also look at the earbuds battery life, but that's about it. The most baffling thing to me though is that it does not have a dedicated music widget or a Spotify widget. But good news to everyone, because OPPO told us that the Spotify widget is indeed coming soon, and we were told that it will arrive no later than April, so stay tuned for that. However, if we start playing music from Spotify for example, then yes, there is a mini pop-up on the bottom part of the cover display's home screen, and then from there we can control the music. But once Spotify gets suspended in the background, then that pop-up disappears. We'll then move on to the main display for now. There is nothing out of the ordinary here, so we have a 6.8-inch AMOLED screen with 2520 by 1080 pixels in resolution and 120Hz refresh rate maximum. The display is actually very good. I did the test twice, one for the top half and another for the bottom half, and both sides cover more or less the same amount of sRGB and DCI-P3 color gamuts and have a very similar delta E number too. Then the maximum manual brightness is at about 542 nits, but when we turn on auto brightness and shine our studio light on it, then it can reach somewhere around 985 nits. That means you won't have any issues when it comes to using the phone outdoors, which is fantastic even during a bright sunny day. And the crease, yes, it's there, but it's just barely visible. I have to shine the light at a certain angle to really highlight the crease and show it on camera too. And I can also feel it with my finger when I swipe across it, though it is definitely not as deep as Samsung's crease. The hinge is also smoother, but maybe it's because the phone is still new. Either way, at least it doesn't have a gap, so dust won't get inside. Now I have to skip forward and talk about the software. The OPPO Find N2 Flip is using ColorOS 13 on top of Android 13, and there is certainly A lot of bloatware apps pre-installed. I mean, just look at this. At first, we only have the infamous hot apps and hot games, but after a firmware update during our review period, they even added one more bloatware, which is called hot free games too. Oh, but today I only want to talk about the ColorOS 13 and how it makes use of this form factor. Honestly speaking, I don't expect much because flip phones just unflip to become a usual standard form factor phone. But OPPO clearly didn't bake in any extra features as well. And the camera app still splits its interface into two, but the gallery app remains the same as before, so nothing special there. The cover display features are more important here. There is a special setting menu item which is called foldable features, and within this menu, we can do a lot of customizations. So we can put our own wallpaper, customize which widget to show and in which order, and finally, to customize the aforementioned quick reply messages and add your own if you want to. Honestly, I do think there's a lot of potential here, but yeah, maybe OPPO should take in some feedback and further improve it because I do think that this cover display is much more useful than Samsung's. Moving on to the cameras, we have two of them, co-developed with Hasselblad and powered by their own Mari Silicon X chip too. We have one main and one more ultra-wide-angle camera, just like the Galaxy Z Flip series. However, I must state now that the OPPO Find N2 Flip does not have OIS for the main camera. How does it affect the pictures? Well, during broad daylight, the main camera is perfectly fine. It takes good pictures in both indoors and outdoors environment, and the colors are magnificent as well. I especially like these pictures of the flowers because I can actually see the flowers texture and the background isn't overexposed. However, the ultra-wide-angle camera is, in my opinion, kind of subpar. The picture is clearly over-sharpened and there is an outline on the subject, and in certain pictures like this, there's even chromatic aberration. And in this picture though, I have no idea why the car is extremely noisy. It's not like the car is going super fast either. As for night shots, since we're in Singapore, then might as well take night shots here in Singapore, right? And I would have to say, using the main camera, there is a difference if you use default auto mode or if you change to night mode explicitly. Because as you can see in this picture comparison here, I really do personally prefer the default mode rather than the night mode, because night mode, it just makes the picture look a bit way too unnatural, so that's only my personal preference. As for the ultra-wide-angle camera at night, I would say, well, yeah, it can capture this obelisk very nicely, so I guess that's okay. But overall, I do think that the ultra-wide-angle camera needs some improvement in the future. With the lack of OIS though, that means videos are going to be very difficult to shoot as well. We are filming this at 1080p 60fps and I tried to hold the phone as steadily as I can, but any sort of micro vibrations or shakes that my hands will introduce will also be translated into the video, and that is what you're seeing here. Any videos of me walking around, well, I would just say that it's rather unusable because I will get dizzy even seeing it for only 5 seconds. However, I do think that the dynamic range of these videos could also be improved further because currently everything is just overexposed. The performance, well, there's really nothing much to talk about here. The OPPO Find N2 Flip is using MediaTek Dimensity 9000 Plus chipset, and I think it will be considered a last-gen chipset as of now at the time of this filming, but because the Find N2 Flip was announced during the time when new chips were getting unveiled, there's really nothing much to do with that impeccable timing. Anyway, this is not a gaming phone, but if you want to use it to play some games, you can. We tested out Genshin Impact at the highest graphical settings and we can get about 40-ish FPS most of the time, which I think is pretty good. The temperature is also kept in control as well, because you know, flip phones will only have the chipset situated on one half of the phone, hence the surface area available to dissipate heat is going to be very limited. But this phone managed to keep everything under 44 degrees Celsius at all times, which is good. The battery life is something that I'm not really concerned about. With the 4300 mAh battery, the OPPO Find N2 Flip can last for about 11 hours in our usual PC Mark battery life test at 100 nits brightness, and I think it will last you throughout one whole day without much issue. We also have a 67-watt charger inside the box, and it charges from 15% to completion in about an hour. As you can see, the charging curve is rather erratic because whenever the temperature rises above 40 degrees Celsius, then the charging speed slows down, and when the phone cools down, then the charging ramps up again. I'm not sure if OPPO is using the pulse charging technique here, but it sure looks very similar. Okay, a few more things to mention about the OPPO Find N2 Flip. This phone does not have wireless charging. Yes, no wireless charging. I know most people won't care about it, but I think it should be included just for the sake of completion at this point. And of course, it's still using a USB 2.0 port, so transferring files in and out of the phone is gonna be slow. And since it is using a USB 2.0 port, it does not have HDMI output as well. I also want to point out one more thing, which is the fingerprint scanner on this phone. I find it to be not that reliable. I ended up registering the same finger twice to get a better experience, but it's still not 100% reliable. So face unlock is my go-to unlocking method for this phone. So should you buy the OPPO Find N2 Flip? Well, I do think that this phone is beautifully made and it feels really nice to the touch. The gapless hinge makes it even better since there's no dust or lint getting inside, so I don't have to wipe it every time I want to use it. And the huge cover display, I would say it's a good thing, though OPPO can take advantage of it via a future software update. The battery life is also pretty good as well. With all of those said, I'll just ask you to keep two things in mind. First, the lack of OIS on the main camera. This is a big problem for me, and I'm sure it is for many other people as well. Secondly, the ultra-wide-angle camera. If you use it a lot, then the quality coming out of this might be an issue for you as well. Other than these two things though, I find that the OPPO Find N2 Flip is a fine phone. And at the official Malaysian price of 3,999 ringgit, I would have to say that the OPPO Find N2 Flip is going to be a very competitive smartphone here and actually everywhere worldwide because they are really focused on taking down the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 4. The main competitor of the OPPO Find N2 Flip is obviously going to be the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 4. And if you're gonna ask me to pick one of these two flip phones, I think it's going to be a very difficult choice for me to make. Both of these phones have their own strengths and problems, so I would say it's really gonna be up to your own personal preference. One phone is surely gonna be suitable for you more than the other. So that's it. That's all we have to share with you about the OPPO Find N2 Flip. If you have any questions, do leave them down in the comment section below. And we'll see you guys in the next one.